Hello and welcome back to Cody's Radio Workshop. It's been a while, I know. I've been busy sorting all sorts of things out, mainly radios, and I've just not had time to do a video, but this one's come in and it's one that I've got another video about, a Roberts R871. I bought this online for spares and repairs with the description that it's got no power from battery or mains. Now usually that means that the clock hasn't been set, because on the Roberts R871 you have to set the clock before the set will switch on. I've had batteries in, well, I've had the one clock battery in at first and the clock display comes up fine, and I've put the 3 power batteries in, the 4.5 volts, but the set isn't switching on regardless of whether the time's set or not. But on a positive note, the clock's working. So we're going to open it up and have a look and see what we can find out. Now, just one thing to note before I go ahead and take this completely to pieces. I've undone the screws on this already, and I can, even without looking inside, I can already tell that something's slightly awry, because there's a odd smell which smells a lot to me like something's either burnt out or got a little bit toasty in there. Now that might be to do with somebody plugging in the wrong power supply here on the left hand side into the power jack, so it could have done all sorts of damage inside there. So I'll just pause and actually take this apart. You've seen me take one of these apart before. The Roberts R871, I've got a video up there of when the selector switch was not travelling all the way between 1 and 12. So if you want to have a look at how to take it apart, just have a flick back and have a look at that one. I'm just going to pause, take this one apart, and then we'll have a look at the circuit board inside. And we're back. Obviously got the top off, desoldered the speaker inside just to remove the front away from the circuit board, and the first thing, I don't know if you'll be able to see, let's see if I can zoom in. Let it focus. If you look just here, we've got some corrosion there which is underneath a capacitor, which appears to have blown up a little bit off the circuit board. So that's the leaked electrolytic, which is that capacitor there. So let's see if we can see from the side. Should get to focus. Yeah, it's just here. You can see it won't focus. Move it away a little. You just see the blown up electrolytic there, so that's going to have to come off and get cleaned up. I can't see anything else at the moment, so I'm just going to change that one cap inside there and see how we go from there. So I'll just pause again while I remove the capacitor. I'll be right back. And we're back. I remove the capacitor, and that's what we have. A lovely, nice and crusty cap. It's a 1000 at 10 volts, and I've got some of those, and I'm just hoping that it will physically fit, because the caps that I've got are physically bigger. So I'm just hoping it sits down far enough, and it does. That's lovely. Just inside here. We'll get that soldered up and we'll get some power back on and see if we've resolved it, which will be a nice easy job to have done, to restore this back to working order. And get some flux on there as well. Gone a little bit overkill with the flux there, but that'll clean off. the second one. Right, so there we go, that's the new cap in, and I'll remove the legs. And we'll try with some batteries. Now I'll have to set the clock, but I'm not bothered about setting the clock for the right time at the moment. Just as long as the clock's set. Hard to tell because I need to put the speaker back on. So now this becomes particularly tight, so let's get the front kind of on, and then I've got the wires there for the speaker. If I remember correctly, the black one goes to the top there and the orange one goes at the bottom. I'll throw some solder onto that. And onto the other pad. Right, now the speaker's back on. I can pop some batteries in and see if we've got the issue resolved. Oops. The batteries don't want to stay in the radio because the back's off. I'll try and hold them in place. It's just to see if we've resolved it so that we've got power. It doesn't look like we have. The lock on. Thought I'd be very fortunate if this just worked right off the bat. Let's try and get the case out of the way and just press the button directly. Just make sure that that lock's not on, and it's not. I'm just going to pause and take that speaker back off. We'll have another look at that circuit board. And welcome back again. I've got a little bit further with it. It's in some sort of distress at the moment, but what I found was that there were, and I've only temporarily done this, a few broken traces on the board. After scratching back and tracing it with a multimeter, some of the traces had no or broken continuity. So I've got a temporary earth wire on here, and here at the top the live trace, which goes from the battery to the positive on the capacitor. The trace was broken there. I had to press on the board to get the continuity, which made the radio power up, but letting go of the board. So I've put a bridge wire on that, I don't know, there, and it now powers up correctly. So I've now got to remove the temporary earth wire because that's not needed and reassemble the radio. So I'm going to pause here for a moment just while I get my bits and pieces together, and then we'll come back and we'll put it back together. Right, here we go. I'm just going to disconnect all the temporary stuff. I had some temporary speaker wire connected to an auxiliary speaker just for testing. So the first thing that I'll need to do is put back on the tuning wheel. I'll try and keep my hands out of the way so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm being very careful with this because I don't want to have to restring it. So that's the tuning wheel back on, which is just in there. Let's zoom in a little so you can see. The tuning wheel back on. So now I need to put the screw back into the middle so that the tuning wheel doesn't come off again. The screw doesn't want to. There we go. And I'll just confirm the operation of it all the way to the top and all the way back down to the bottom again. And then I need to put the circuit board, the clock board, back together. I'm trying to do this without getting my hands in the way. I've got my camera in a different position today. There. So now I need those 3 screws. There are 3 of them the same size for putting that circuit board back together. Let's zoom back out again. So as I say, I'm just putting the screws back into the circuit board for the control panel. Loosen those other ones off because I need to line that hole up a bit better than it is. There we go. Sorry, hands getting in the way there again. Put this one that I'm just trying to put in nails, not wanting to play nice. There we go. Make sure they're in and tight. Right, now we have to get the selectors back onto the switches. So this means pressing the board down onto the securing lugs. I'm quite well versed with the R871 now. This is the second one that I've done this year. There's probably about 5 in total that I've done. I'll leave it on that side. I'll fire up the soldering iron while I'm just making sure that those selector switches yep, that's come off just like the last one did. Whoops. Try and lift that up and get that back on, which isn't the easiest thing in the world. No, I'm going to have to pop the board back. Maybe just with 2 of the lugs. And that should give us the space that we need to lift that up onto the travel. There we go. That lugs back in, that lugs back in. And that's onto the shortwave selector now, which does have full travel. Alright, we're almost there with the soldering iron. Pop on the desolderer as well. It might get a little noisier, but I'll just use the soldering iron just to take the temporary speaker wires off. And to remove the temporary earth. There we go. I might not actually need the desolderer after all. Right. Now get the actual speaker wires connected back together. Grab some solder over the iron. And put a blob onto each pad. Like that. And get some tweezers to hold the wire down whilst I solder it. It's got quite a bit of tension actually on that wire. That's that one. And the positive wire for the speaker. So there's the speaker wires back on. Right. There's a couple more screws to go back in. bottom corner here. And one onto the circuit board just here. Then I've got the aerial wire to put back onto the frame here, which will be quite an art in itself. I'm just going to tape that back just to hold it out of the way, just while I solder that wire back onto there. To flow some more solder onto that it's not taking. A bit of flux on to help it. Just pause a moment. And we're back. Small interruption there. My son just came and knocked on the door. Let's try and get this wire soldered back onto that back plate. Yep, it's on. And now it's not. Yep, that's taken this time. Get rid of the tape. Right, now we have to try and fit the aerial wire back under the aerial, which is fiddly. Really didn't need to take off the aerial screw. Just got carried away whilst I was taking things apart. I'll find the aerial screw and get that there into the hole. Get that fastened in. Did I get it? No, I missed it. I'll try that again. I might pause the videos sometimes, but I don't edit them. You get to see it just as tricky as I find it myself sometimes. That's got it. So that's that. Right. Now fold the aerial out of the way. I need to take this front back off the radio because I need to put the dial legend back in. I do need to remove those screws again. One, two. I'll take off the front face. And we'll get the dial legend back in. The front back on, put those screws back in. I always start with this end where you have to slot the socket back into the hole. Never easy. A locating lug. I'm not happy with that, it's too much of a force. Trusty spudger or smudger. Might have got it this time. Yeah. And now the lock switch has popped off. Wait, there. So again, it's got to come apart. Nothing ever goes to plan when you're doing a video, but getting back together. And put the radio knobs back on. Right, couple more screws into the back, which are the longer ones. There we go. One there and one there. Somebody's gardening, I apologise about that noise. Been a fiddly old job, this one. Hopefully. Clock battery is in. And now the main batteries. Obviously, I've genuinely not tried this. Right, so we've got the clock flashing. Let's try and get you around. I'll open the rest for it. Try and get, there we go. So I've cheated and just told it it's 10 o'clock on the 1st of the 5th, 1994. And we've now got power, which we didn't have previously. We'll extend the aerial and see what we get.
Hello, young thug on Radio 1. Radio 1.
Rise up and prevent them from... You weren't born. I kind of hate you. But no, not really. You can play along if you like.
There we
but
go.
What were you doing in 1997 then? What was going on? Where were you in
We're
your
all
life?
sorted.
How old were you? What was going on? Did you have a job? Were you still at school? Were you in love? Was the world still your oyster? It might still be your oyster. Let us know.
That's
just
on FM. Let's try it on medium.
What were you...
Look, I got off the bad start.
Managers on the board as well, they have a big say in that, and I think
And long wave.
So where is it at, Karen? Because there have been different reports. I know that we heard from Keith's brother Greg on Wednesday.
Let's try it on shortwave, though I'm not expecting much.
طبقا لما قالته الوزارة في بيان نشر على الإنترنت يوم الخميس.
It's on about 9.52. It's 5:15 in the afternoon.
تحية لكم
About 9.4. So yeah, anyway, there we go. It is fully working. That is the Roberts R871 BBC World Service Radio. And just to recap what we've actually done to it, I've changed one of the capacitors because that was pretty nasty. That's a 1000 UF cap. It's obviously gone bad. I tested that and it still gave a reading. ESR was good, but it was reading about 500 UF, which is about half of what it should have been. There's the corrosion on the board and two traces that took me about 2 hours to find that were broken, and I've resoldered them, remade them, and we've struggled putting it back together, but well worth doing. You know, lovely little radio, really. Ultra portable. A decent sound for a portable radio.
Now there has been a lot of comment.
Try not to get any copyright hits.
Really, when Kate Middleton got engaged.
There we go, all sorted. Thanks very much for watching. Smash that subscribe button, click like, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching. See you later.